As you can tell by how long this video is, I have a lot to say about River City Girls 2. Now look, before I say anything specific, I'll say this right off the bat. River City Girls 2 is better than River City Girls 1, but it's also worse at the same time. And I'll be saying everything about why that is the case, or at least as much as I can, because there is a lot to take in. But first, I think we should talk about the reason why this video took so long for me to make, aside from my laziness. June 14th, 2021. During Kunio-kun's 35th anniversary, Wayforward puts out a tweet announcing both River City Girls 0, please go check out my video about that if you haven't, and the all-new River City Girls 2. October 2nd, 2021. During Arc System Works' livestream at Tokyo Game Show, we got our first actual teaser trailer for River City Girls 2, scheduled to be released in 2022. River City Saga 3 Kingdoms was also announced in the same livestream, and while that game got a full presentation, River City Girls 2 got this one trailer, which clearly shows that the game was still being worked on in its early to mid stages. December 15th, 2021. The first English reveal trailer was shown during Nintendo's Indie World Showcase, which revealed a closer release window. Both of these trailers, especially the Indie World trailer, had a lot going for them. Kunio and Riki, you know, the two main characters of this franchise, being playable at the start and seemingly having full movesets now. The introduction of two new playable characters in the form of Pruvi and Marion, completely new locations, new mechanics with the combat system, a full Japanese dub, something that River City Girls 1 just didn't have despite the Kunio-kun series being way more popular over there. Oh yeah, and did I mention online co-op? A whole lot was being promised for this sequel. I mean, that release window just seems too good to be true, right? August 3rd, 2022. Famitsu has a section on River City Girls 2, revealing the seiyus for Marion and Pruvi, but also announcing a new release date, December 1st, 2022. 6 days later, Wayforward put out a tweet saying that River City Girls 2 will be delayed and will release sometime around the end of 2022, presumably around December, to, quote, ensure the most polished experience possible. An extremely vague statement that led me, and probably lots of others, to feel disappointed, but also a little hopeful that they'll actually take their time with this one. River City Girls 1 and somehow River City Girls 0 were released with numerous bugs that haven't been patched since their release. Hell, even I was pretty hopeful when this tweet got out, so maybe this one will at least have some kind of polish? Right? December 1st, 2022. River City Girls 2 was finally released in Japan. Wayforward put out another tweet the day before saying that River City Girls 2 will come out in North America and Europe sometime later this December, once again to deliver the best, most full-featured experience possible. And hey, it eventually came out on December 15th. So how did that launch go? Well, to start off, the game doesn't run at 60 FPS. Well, to be more specific, the menus do, but not actual gameplay. A 2D beat-em-up released in 2022, which is a sequel to a game that ran at 60 at launch, that runs on the same engine as the first game, doesn't run at 60 FPS. Well, at least at launch. You're probably wondering how I got this smooth 60 FPS footage you're looking at right now. Well, just as the game came out, Wayforward put out a notice on Steam saying that, quote, issues in the code are preventing certain elements from rendering at the full frame rate. Certain elements? It was 90% of the game! Anyway, they listed below how to get the beta branch on PC so that the entire game now runs at 60 FPS. Over the course of 7 months, yes, 7 months, Wayforward would slowly but surely try and get this patch out with update tweets along the way, until it was finally put out live on June 1st. Does it fix that frame rate issue? Yes, but another issue popped up. The physics in hit stop and hit stun were fucked up to say the least. It completely changed the way combos were done. I was appalled by this since we waited, again, 7 months for a simple frame rate and bug patch. And it did fix that, but created new problems in the process. It's unbelievable. Well, thankfully, but like 2 weeks later, another beta branch patch came out, fixing the collision bug temporarily until another patch comes out, which eventually did happen more than a month later. Almost 2 months later after that, on August 29th, Wayforward added 4-player online multiplayer to the Steam version. I wish I could try that out, but I don't have 4 friends that want to play this game, and public lobbies on Steam are almost non-existent. Now, do I think that the game is in a much better state than it was first released in? Absolutely. The frame rate is uncapped on Steam, there's a much better frame rate on the Switch version, and the combat on both versions has been fixed as far as I played since the patches were released. But that doesn't excuse the horrible state this game was launched in. It should have been delayed for like another year or 2 at least. I don't know if this was Arc wanting to push this out as fast as possible or Wayforward doing their Wayforward things, but either way, it is unacceptable to put out a game in this state in 2022. Honestly, I'm really glad I delayed this video because I would not want to make like 4 update videos and instantly make this one outdated. I wanted to get everything out there in just this one video. Speaking of which, here's a quick list of bugs I found on my first playthroughs.
It's Suiko. She says the docks are no longer blocked and we can now access more of Ocean Heights. More of Ocean Heights.
Legendary abs.
I'll say. Who are you?
Feels like we've been walking forever.
This looks like a good place to chill when we need a break.
Even inside these creepy abandoned circus cages?
Sure. What's safer than a cage?
Anyway, let's talk about the bigger picture. So instead of talking about both the story and gameplay at the same time, I want to dedicate this segment to general gameplay and new stuff because there have been a lot of changes between River City Girls 1 and 2. Though I will be talking about certain gameplay elements in my segments about the story if they tie in with one another. To start off, the combat has vastly improved. As good as the combat was in RCG 1, it was extremely repetitive. Now it feels like you actually have to think about what you're doing instead of mindlessly spamming special moves. One of the best new additions to the combat is air combos. Once you've reached level 8, you get access to a launching attack where you can do said air combos. These are really fun if you want to deal with one stubborn enemy, deal with a whole group of enemies in the air, or go really large distances with aerial special attacks. They're extremely versatile and fun to use, and they're pretty unique for each character. Speaking of which, I didn't really talk about this in my RCG 1 video, but it's more apparent in this game. The playable characters feel a little bit too samey. This wasn't a problem in River City Ransom or even in Downtown Special since you had like 2 playable characters, but in a game with 6 playable characters instead of 4, it makes you want to have some more variety. Obviously, not every character has the exact same moves. The differences between them lie in just their special moves, honestly, but different character types give a lot of replay value. A perfect example that comes to mind is Streets of Rage 2. Max can do massive amounts of damage but is extremely slow, while Skate can do not that much damage but his crowd control abilities and movement make up for it, while Axel and Blaze are decent in both damage and speed. All 4 of the characters in Streets of Rage 2 not only play extremely differently from each other, but they give a lot of replay value, and a playthrough of River City Girls 2 is about 3 times as long as a playthrough of Streets of Rage 2. Kunio-tachi no Banka has almost the exact same problem, where none of the characters feel that unique aside from their special moves. Character variety was never really a strong suit in the Kunio-kun series, but River City Girls 1 and 2 are clearly going for something different. What I'm saying is that I would rather have different characters than personal preference. Speaking of which, I personally had the most fun with Kunio and Ricky. Seeing them have complete movesets is great since they were last-minute additions in River City Girls 1. Still not a fan of their redesigns though. Kunio at least has his color scheme with the white school uniform and red shirt turning into a white jacket and pants and a red hoodie respectively, but Ricky, what the fuck happened to you? Dude not only lost most of his color scheme, but they completely butchered his hair. Was the existence of the enemies with the pompadours preventing Ricky from having the same hairstyle? You know, the hairstyle he's had since since 1986. It's like if Axel Stone had a buzz cut in Streets of Rage 4 for some reason. It just doesn't work. But Kenka Hagar had a ponytail in Final Fight 3. Yeah, but it didn't completely change his hairstyle. The ponytail is just something extra. The assist or recruiting mechanic has also been changed. For one, it consistently works now, which is pretty good. I don't think I ever had a problem in my playthroughs where an assist came out too late after hitting the button or I had trouble recruiting one. You can even recruit 2 enemies at once now, which is kind of neat. There's even new special recruits called hired henchmen that you have to pay to hire, which do stronger attacks. And that makes sense because they're way more useful than the regular enemy recruits, since it actually seems like they were designed to be assists. There's a good amount of these kind of recruits to hire, but I'll talk about them individually later. There's also a new quick item swapping mechanic, which is controlled in the weirdest way. Since the inputs for recruiting and summoning assists are taken by both triggers, you have to use the right stick to navigate through which food you have in this little circle here, and you have to click in the right stick to actually eat it. Thank God you can remap the controls, because this was really unintuitive throughout my whole playthroughs. I didn't change any of the controls because I wanted to play with the default controls as such, but if I, for whatever reason, wanted to replay this game again, I would have remapped the left and right triggers to navigate through the quick food menu and press L1 to eat the food I have in that quick menu, because yeah, recruits still suck. Now, what about those new locations? Well, each area in River City Girls 1 has returned with new rooms and such, but the only 2 completely new areas are Flatirons and Technos, and they're both significantly smaller compared to the returning areas. Funny how the trailers and descriptions of this game state that River City is bigger than ever when it's only slightly bigger than ever. But a slightly bigger city means a new mission system, and the Honker app on your character's phone is just that. It covers things like story-specific missions, side quests, or new hired henchmen that show up as you progress through the game. And it does its job pretty well. Since the missions you get are more like tweets than general missions, it gave them the excuse to do some flavor text for them. Each character has a different style of how they type out their messages like a real social media site, which makes them pretty fun to read. I think the idea of combining a mission system with a legally distinct Twitter is pretty genius, and it gives the game a lot more personality. There's also the Snapper app, which ties into a large side quest I'll talk about when we get to the story, but it's also there for looking at unlockable concept art as you progress through the game. Also, why did these 3 enemies get scrapped? They're the best looking enemies out of any of the new ones we got in the final game, honestly. As for the music, Megan McDuffie returns once again to tackle the soundtrack for this game, and she's done an even better job than before. While it reuses almost every single track from the first game, the completely new tracks she did here are great. I didn't mention it in my RCG1 video, but my biggest complaint about that game's OST is the fact that there's no real distinction or variety between each track, which led to almost all of them sounding incredibly samey. In RCG2, I can clearly distinguish which tracks belong to each area, like if a track sounds more digital and futuristic, that means it's from Technos, or if it sounds more tropical, then it's from Ocean Heights. Every area, including the returning ones, have way more distinct themes, which I greatly appreciate. Same goes for the new vocal tracks, Get Off My Lawn and Feel the Heat being my personal favorites. There's new enemy types that fit into the area as well too, like this wrestler lady, the radical skateboarding wizard, Martha Splatterhead, an enemy from the Technos Beat 'em Up the Combat Tribes, who was also a store clerk in RCG1 by the way, these marching band zombie guys, and these robot cat girls.
Hello, Joshua.
Hi.
I hear you are a connoisseur of various robot women. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So I've developed a little game here. I've collected 21 robots from various medias, and we're gonna play a little game of Smash or Pass. Now, I've sorted them into tiers here, and we're just gonna work our way down, okay?
Alright.
Okay, let's start things off real simple.
Smash.
Alright, let's keep going.
Smash.
Alright.
Smash.
Okay.
Pass.
Alright, first pass of the game, okay. Let's keep moving.
Definitely Smash.
Alright.
Smash.
There's a lot of smashes here.
Absolutely a Smash.
Okay.
Too metal, so pass.
Now we're in the now we're getting into like the robot territory here.
Yeah.
The first tier was like women, but they're basic. But the robot in name alone, we're moving down now.
Dangerous Smash, you know.
Alright, let's keep going.
Yes.
Alright, next up. Come on, Josh.
Pass.
Look at those grippers, though, Josh. Look at 'em.
No, I'm gonna keep it at pass.
All right. Come on, Josh.
Pass. Pass.
All right. Okay, we are now out of the semi group here. Now we're moving into the weird shit. Starting off with Robo. Now he's not a robot girl, but I wanted to include him anyways because I like Robo.
I like Robo too, but I would give him a pass.
All right. Speaking of grippers. Come on, Josh. Come on.
Smash.
All right. Let's keep getting here. Now we're moving into the questionable territory.
You can't do this, man.
Come on. Answer the question, damn it.
Smash. Pass.
Josh?
I can't do this anymore.
Come on, Josh.
Pass.
Almost there.
Pass. Pass. Please. Pass.
Alright, ready? Here's the last one. Just one more.
Yeah, okay. This all in all, the new enemy types are great, and I really like how the old enemy types are implemented too. Like how you'll usually see the cyborg men in Technos or the cops in Uptown and Downtown. Lock encounters are still a thing though, which I hated in the first game, but they aren't nearly as bad in this game since they're mostly used in story-related events rather than just being randomly sprawled out through every area. They go away completely when you're done with them too, which I greatly appreciate. One last thing, you're probably wondering why I haven't really brought up the co-op mode yet. I mean, there's new co-op moves that look pretty cool. Well, the thing is, I would like to get more co-op footage if the online functionality was non-existent for months. A few months back, while I was still recording footage for this game, like God knows how long ago, me and Brother Keo tried opening up private online lobbies and they just didn't work. I don't know if it was because we were trying to do it over crossplay, but for whatever reason, it just refused to work. I tried getting rid of the beta branch patch too, and that didn't work either. A couple months later, when one of the new patches came out, I did actually get into a public online lobby and messed around a bit there, and it played fine. At this point, I was just done getting footage and wanted to start writing, so I only got like 20 minutes of footage. Maybe I'm just stupid or something, but the online experience for this game for me was terrible and just didn't work. Oh, and speaking of things that didn't work, the game starts with the ending cutscene from the first game, but from Sabako's perspective, where we see her fall into an alleyway and conveniently see Kyoko, Masako, Kunio, and Riki walking down the street to go to Merv's Burger joint. Wait, so both endings are canon? Alright, I'll take it.
Let's go get a burger. I'm starving.
So, you guys were here the whole time?
Yes, even tough guys need me time.
Whatever. You're treating us to lunch now.
Hey, we didn't agree to that.
Savor this unique dialogue for Kunio and Riki because that's all you're gonna get. Anyway, Sabako sees the four walking down the street and tries to attack them before she's interrupted by a limousine carrying Sabako's adopted brother, Ken, voiced by the one and only Todd Havercorn. Out of all of the new characters in this game, Todd does the absolute best performance for his character. He fits Ken's snarky and rich kid attitude perfectly.
Obviously, Dad should have left me in charge. I'm sure he sees that now. Sure, you're his blood and all, but sometimes blood don't run so deep. Of course, I'm sure he'll fix that right now. I gotta be honest, I've been waiting my whole life for you to faceplant like this. I might even take a selfie to commemorate the moment.
Also, story-wise, I want to correct myself on something that I said in my RCG Zero video, specifically where I asked if River City Girls is canon with the rest of the Kunio-kun series. And through these two games, and from Adam Tierney himself on the Wayforward Discord server, that the obvious answer is no. Keep in mind, I said this way before I played RCG 2, as it seemed the main reason why Kunio-tachi no Banka was even localized in the first place was to introduce newer fans to Ken, which was his first and only appearance in the franchise up until this point. I should have known better since it's implied that both Sabu and Ken pretty much die at the end of Kunio-tachi no Banka, that River City Girls was going to be its own continuity. I had a lot of expectations about River City Girls 2's story since we barely knew anything about it up until the game's release. Like, I imagined this huge plot where the River City Girls universe and the regular Kunio-kun universe were going to collide into one or something, but now that I played this game at least 4 times, I wish we had that kind of story, to be honest. You'll see why later. So once Sabako gets into the limo, her, Ken, and a few Sanwakai bodyguards visit the River City Penitentiary. Penitentiary? Okay, how do you pronounce that?
Penitentiary.
Okay, cool. Where they visit their father, obviously Sabu, voiced by David Lodge, who's mostly known for voicing Jiraiya from Naruto, among many others. He's doing an amazing job as well, encapsulating how much of a serious threat he is compared to his children.
Did you bring shame on our family? On our organization? I thought you would be ready. I thought you'd be more reliable than your screw-up brother, Ken. I was wrong!
Ken tells Sabu about what happened with Sabako and the girls, and Sabu is absolutely pissed as he breaks a wall from his cell with his bare fist and escapes as he plans to put River City under his control. This entire intro cutscene is fantastic, showing how terrified both Ken and Sabako are of their father, while showing that no punches are being pulled. It's getting serious. Okay. Now, to clarify for the rest of the game, I'll be referring to the player characters as Masako and Kyoko, even though you can change your partner voice for the dialogue scenes during gameplay since there are multiple playable characters now. But get this, every, and I mean every character has almost the exact same amount of voice lines no matter who you pick. So whether it's Misako and Kunio, Kyoko or Ricky, hell, even something like Pruvi or Ricky, it doesn't matter. They will all say the same shit.
Let's get to that mall, get our game, and get back here as fast as possible.
Ugh, can we maybe not do the fast part? My tummy doesn't feel so hot.
Yeah, mine either. Maybe we shouldn't have sat on a couch for 2 months straight. Ugh, my previous XP.
Or ate all that junk food.
I can't even remember how to fight. Guess we'll have to relearn everything.
Learn? Ugh, didn't we get expelled so we don't have to learn anymore?
Let's get to that mall, get our game, then get back here as fast as possible.
Maybe without the fast part? My stomach doesn't feel so good.
Yeah, mine either. Maybe we shouldn't have sat on the couch for 2 months straight. Ugh, my previous XP.
Or ate all that junk food.
Can't even remember how to fight. Guess we'll have to relearn everything.
Learn? Didn't we get expelled so we don't have to learn anymore?
Let's get to that mall, get our game, then get back here as fast as possible.
Maybe without the fast part. My stomach doesn't feel so good.
Yeah, mine either. Maybe we shouldn't have sat on the couch for 2 months straight. Oof, my previous XP.
Or ate all that junk food.
I can't even remember how to fight. I guess we'll have to relearn everything.
Learn? Ugh, didn't we get expelled so we don't have to learn anymore?
When I discovered this during my second playthrough, I was absolutely baffled by this. It completely ruins replayability as I was expecting each character to react to story events at least somewhat differently. So why is it like this? Well, according to Adam, who was asked about why everyone has the same dialogue in this game, he said that they first tried to make everyone be involved in the scene, but it wouldn't flow too well and make them less interesting. But I think there's a pretty simple solution to this problem. Just don't do that. Okay, to be more specific, choose different characters for different scenes to write dialogue for instead of just Kyoko and Masako for every cutscene. Which is also the reason for everyone else's copied dialogue. Like, no way in hell Kunio would want to go see a movie while they're going to the game store in the mall, or hell, even go to a game store in the first place. He would try to solve this case about why the Sanwakai family is taking over River City as fast as possible and take them down. He's done that twice already in the main series. So since Kyoko and Masako's characterization and writing was the base for every character's dialogue, it can lead to some extremely out-of-character moments and, like I said before, completely kills replayability.
Were you two planning on taking a break sometime this month?
Why bother?
Yeah, those evil Yakuza took over the school.
No point ever going back there.
You must first acquire the emblems of each of his disciples.
Icicles?
She said bicycles. Pay attention.
And remember what I said to savor these lines for Kunio and Riki about like a minute ago? Because unless you play as them, that is all you're gonna hear from them during the entire game. In most of the manga cutscenes, it's always Kyoko and Masako voicing their opinions, motives, and cracking jokes. Yet we see no other kind of unique interactions with the 2 or later 4 characters. I want to see more of Kunio and Masako talking to each other, or maybe even some unusual pairings like Riki and Marion, or Kunio and Kyoko. It's a waste of voice talent as well, because I was looking forward to more new dialogue from Greg Chun and Kaiji Tang, not rehashed dialogue from characters that don't fit their personalities in the slightest. Anyway, we then cut to River City High, where the girls have seemingly gone through a hole in the building as they're late for school, which is actually the same hole Masuzu made in the first game. I know the first game seemingly took place during an entire day, but wouldn't you think they would at least tape that hole shut or something? It's still out in the open. Anyway, as they go through 2 pretty obvious tutorials and are bombarded with prompts on how to jump and block and parry, we run into what seems to be Masako and Kyoko's homeroom teacher, Megumi, though this has later turned out to be a trap. As the 2 walk to their desks, Ken and his 2 bodyguards drop down from the ceiling as he tells them he's running River City High now, followed by his 2 bodyguards kicking him out of the building through a window, and they somehow survive that fall.
Well, at least we finished the school stage quicker this time.
What do you mean?
Nothing. Attempt at meta humor.
So what did the girls think they should do after getting literally kicked out of the school by some guy they don't even know who somehow runs the school now? Why, be couch-ridden and play video games for 2 months straight at Kyoko's house, of course, up until Kyoko's mom, who's also voiced by Kira Buckland, by the way, tells them they should go outside since the sequel to Vampire Puncher is out now.
Well, I did hear a sequel to Vampire Puncher was just released. What? This morning, in fact. That game store at the mall should have a few copies.
And here we are still playing the original like a pair of chumps.
Yeah, everyone knows that sequels are always better.
Yeah, right? Especially when they're fully working well on launch. Oh. So since the girls have spent that much time on the couch, they're gonna have to gain back all their XP and relearn all of their moves. So that means we gotta beat up people that were paid by the Sanwakai family to get their money and then pay the Double Grunt brothers to get some more moves. You'll notice right away that despite the game advertising the new locations, a lot of River City Girls 1's assets were reused. All of them got new rooms and areas to go through, but they're mostly familiar territory. Which, for how detailed that game's assets and backgrounds were, it's inevitable that at least all of them would be reused, which is perfectly fine in my opinion. At least they changed some things around as the Sanwakai family has destroyed places like Crosstown, and especially River City High, which I'll talk about later. For the returning areas, I'll only be talking about what's been changed or what's been added to each of them. The familiar areas in Crosstown only look slightly different, the most notable change being this giant ass hole in front of the convenience store. For the new parts of Crosstown specifically, there's the bridge that leads to downtown, the River City Bank, the sports store and movie theater and the mall, the brand new dojo where you can test out your combos, and the rest area where we run into Godai, who actually sounds like he's acting this time, which is an improvement.
Oh, well, you know, I like to keep my eyes around town. Speaking of, you two sure are dressed sharp today.
Speaking of Godai, he only gives you one side quest to do, but it spans out through the whole game, where he wants you to take one selfie in a specific part of each location in River City, which is also the only case of the new day and night cycle actually affecting gameplay. Aside from this one accessory, the only effect this has on the gameplay as far as I know is taking this one selfie in Flatirons at night. That's literally it. If anything, it makes getting the selfie extremely annoying since time passes by extremely slowly. It's not real time obviously, but it's still at a snail's pace. There's no items that can make time go faster or anything, so you just gotta do something else and then go back to it until it's night. Super fucking annoying. One last thing I should mention that's new is Kyoko's house. This is the main hideout of Crosstown. Every area of River City has at least one of these. While you're in them, you can swap between different characters on the fly, choose what kind of recruits you've gotten throughout the game, and store all the items you're not using in this nice little storage box. If you quit and then come back later without saving at a hideout, the game will automatically put you into the last hideout you were we're in. The game does save your progress, you just have to do a little repeated progress, which is pretty annoying, especially in a blind playthrough where you don't even know where the hideout of the area is. There's no special icon for a hideout's door, unlike a shop, for example. There's a little house icon for where the hideout is on your map after you enter it, but it's still pretty weird that they just didn't make an icon for the door of a hideout. So after going through the mall and a quick tangent to the movie theater— oh hey, it's Ken! Why is he even here in the first place? Who cares? We're gonna fight him. Ken's moves amount to instant transmissioning while shooting bullets, martial arts that don't work that well sometimes, letting his random guards do his work for him, and frantically shooting his gun around. Needless to say, he's the first boss. Also, I already missed the beautifully animated cutscenes for all of the bosses from the first game. Instead, we get these quick Sony Vegas jobs that barely animate. Also, the boss themes are done by McDuffie this time around instead of Chipcell, which is kind of a shame, but hey, her boss themes here are pretty good, so it's not really an issue. What is an issue, though, is why the hell is Ken's theme a remix of the boss theme from River City Ransom? He has his own theme in Kunio-tachi no Banka. You could have just remixed that. Embarrassingly, this guy killed me at least 3 times before I got him. The bosses in River City Girls 2 don't really hold punches. They're a lot more difficult compared to the first game, so you better come prepared with some food and trial and error, because a lot of them do really unavoidable bullshit that you can't really stop. It'll be more apparent later, I promise. So once Ken's taken care of, he tries to shoot the 2 girls, but is stopped by a knife with a note on it that comes out of nowhere, which prompts him to escape. Misako picks up the note and says they gotta head off to North Ravine Lane. The person who wrote the letter also sends you a honk, just in case you weren't paying attention to the cutscene. I should also talk about Paul, who you run into at the entrance of the Crosstown Mall. He's the first hired henchman you can recruit in the game, and so Paul first showed up as a playable character in River City Ransom Underground. A lot of Underground characters show up in this game actually, which makes sense since Ben and Rudis directed that game also. But a lot of them got really weird or straight up just bad redesigns, and Paul is in the latter category. The only things that sorta resemble him are his boxing gloves and spiky hair, but aside from that, he might as well be a completely different character. His voice doesn't help either.
Oh hey! You two heading inside the mall? Some Yakuza gang apparently took over all the stores. Hey buddy, you looking for a sparring partner? I'm your guy. I knew you'd be back. You need some help, huh?
Anyway, the person who wrote the letter turns out to be Savako, and after a forced lock encounter, she tells the girls that she wants to get revenge on her father and Ken for how they treated her, which, going by the intro cutscene, makes a lot of sense. She tells the girls that they can't reach Sabu yet, so they'll have to get all of the emblems from each of his disciples to get inside Sanwakai Tower. And even though we already beat up Ken in the movie theater like 10 minutes ago, she wants to rub it in his face a bit more by making the girls take money back from Sanwakai members that are robbing the River City Bank. But not before we do our first minigame. Yes, this game has minigames as part of either required missions to progress or side quests. They're all different, but they range from boring and repetitive to annoying and pointless. The first one you can do is this dodgeball minigame on the River City High Beanball Court. The minigame itself is the worst version of Super Dodgeball. By that, I mean throwing some volleyballs at 5 dudes 3 times, each with a heart system that doesn't appear in anything else in the game. How do you go even lower than the Famicom version? Because at least in that version, it feels great to finally land a hit on someone after missing for 20 times. Anyway, on to the River City Bank. Here you have to take care of Sabu's henchmen in another minigame where you have to make sure they don't get as much money as you do. In layman's terms, just fill up the bar on the left till it's fully green. You have a minute and a half to do this, but it isn't that hard at all. Oh, also the exact Yakuza guy who was at the top floor in Sanwakai Tower in the last game is commanding the henchman here. Because why make another character where you can just reuse another guy, right? I'm honestly surprised he doesn't even have a name at this point. In RCG 1, he's just called Yakuza, but in RCG 2, they gave him the vastly improved name of Yakuza Henchman. Now, once we're done with this minigame, we can actually make a choice on where we want to go. In RCG 1, it was extremely linear. The order in the areas you go to was always River City High, Crosstown, Uptown, Downtown, Ocean Heights, and lastly Sanwakai Tower, just like a traditional beat-em-up. In RCG 2, however, you have the option of going to either Uptown or Downtown first. I really like this since it actually adds some replay value. The very few replay value it gives you, I might add. So at least you have something different to do in a New Game Plus playthrough. I'll be covering each of the areas in the order I went to on my first playthrough, starting with Now, before I talk about downtown itself, I want to go into a brief tangent on how the map in this game works. During the 4 or so playthroughs I did, I noticed there's multiple paths you can go to for each area. Crosstown is sort of the main hub that 4 of the 6 areas connect to. So since there's multiple paths to the different areas, it can lead to some pretty funny things. On my first playthrough, I went to downtown to start with and went into an entrance that I think the game doesn't want you to go in first, which is this one that takes you to the entrance of the subway. Why exactly? Because if you go to the entrance that's in the bottom center of downtown, this happens.
Wait, where are we? I thought we were headed to downtown.
This is downtown, apparently.
Wow, it's different. A lot less,
Garbagey?
yeah, and kind of trendy.
I don't like it.
We don't belong here.
What they're referring to is that the city street in the bottom part of downtown has been completely reworked into Hipster Street. Genius naming aside, the girls talk about this area as if it's the first thing they see when they get to downtown, which won't really make sense if you go into this entrance first. What could have worked is to have them mention how different it looks without making it seem like this is the main entrance to downtown, because the area with the subway entrance doesn't change all that much. Anyway, aside from this street, downtown has changed quite a bit. Right next to Hipster Street is a completely reworked bar that has guys in the background playing axe darts. The dump has the trash compactor covered up with metal as well. The new areas are where the main quest for downtown comes in. In the entrance near the subway in downtown, the girls run into Sao Tome. And to be clear, I mean no disservice to Rem, the main character designer for both River City Girls 1 and 2, but this redesign is dog shit. It looks like they looked at Sao Tome's original design, looked at his hair, and immediately thought of how emo and edgy he could look, despite his personality in the Downtown Neketsu games not being like that at all. The saving grace is that he's voiced by Alex Lee, and he does a pretty good job with the terrible dialogue he's given.
No one understands the depths of my despair.
Yep, that's pretty angsty.
What you doing here, kid?
Stuff? What do you care?
We don't. But typically, people we run into give us some kind of useful info or something.
Yeah, got any for us?
We're all gonna die, and nothing we do before then matters.
That's not very helpful.
After those hilarious exchanges, he tells the girls about a girl with legendary abs who's basically taken over downtown. He tells you to go to the local basketball court nearby because that girl goes there every now and then and clears out the Yakuza if they're playing there. The basketball court is right next to a dog park where this can happen. Anyway, Godai's here, and he tells you to take care of the Yakuza that are playing at the court. This leads to one of my favorite segments in the game. Weird collision bugs aside, I'm really glad this isn't some shitty basketball minigame. Wayforward didn't dare touching the greatness that is Ganbare Dunk Heroes, all while listening to this amazing original song done by Megaran, DJ Chief, and the Microphone Misfits. Godai even gives you the track for taking care of them, which is pretty nice. Actually, the only nice thing he's done in these 2 games. The next mission we gotta do involves a power outage in downtown. Heading over to Junk City, a really nice place where you can just hang out and smell those nice burning rubber fumes. The girls run into Williams, and hey look, a redesign that's not terrible! Going by this design sheet in the Snapper app, it's a pretty funny interpretation of the NES sprite, and I really like what came out of it, honestly. Williams tells the girls that since the Yakuza scared away the service folk, the power's been out, and he tasks them with bringing power back to downtown by hitting 3 generators with a wrench engineer style. The generators are located in Junk City, the coffee shop, and the 10th floor of the apartment building. With each of these, you gotta keep hitting the generator with a wrench while enemies try to stop you from doing so. It isn't that hard, but it's pretty obvious that this was for 2 players. There's another mission that has that same vibe that I'll talk about way later. So once the power's back on, an electric gate to Abobo's room opens up where you can find, well, a Bobo just sitting on his couch. He tells the girls that the girl with legendary abs is in the subway, which we can go into now. Bobo's a hired henchman too, one of the best in the game, honestly. So once the girls go into the subway, which is way bigger compared to how it was in RCG1, they run all the way to the end of the tunnel where they run into Marion.
What happened to the customer is always right?
Stay on the secret. customer's always an asshole!
So, hey guys, remember how I talked about how it was cool that Marion was not only gonna come back in River City Girls 2, but also be playable the last video? Well, the way you unlock her is by beating her in her own boss fight. One of the worst boss fights in any beat 'em up I've ever played. To start off, like every other boss in the game, she can just escape out of a combo whenever she wants to, so that's fun. Whenever you bring her down one bar, she'll do this long and drawn out jumping and landing punch attack, which causes 3 platforms that you gotta quickly jump on, because after that, Marion pulls a switch which causes the area to fill up with mutagen looking sewage, and you just gotta dodge metal barrels she throws at you for what feels like a minute. And since this game's physics aren't built for platforming at all, shit like this can happen. You gotta be extra careful and just run up to a platform that's right next to you. Things heat up on her last phase where she rings up a punch for massive damage if you don't try to avoid it. I actually found out in future playthroughs that you can parry this punch, which is pretty funny. And the last barrel throwing segment has her sometimes throwing 2 barrels at once, so hey, enjoy falling into the sewage at least once or twice. It doesn't sound that bad, but this is one of the most frustrating bosses in the entire game. This rivals the noise fight in River City Girls 1 for hazards that are way harder to avoid than they should be, and bullshit attacks that make it seem like the boss takes way longer to fight than it actually is. And guess what? This game has the exact same problem that River City Girls 1 has with its cutscenes. You have to hold down the skip button every time you die and retry a boss fight. Thankfully, there's no manga cutscenes in between a dialogue scene this time, but it is still so fucking annoying to go through this for multiple playthroughs. Last thing I should mention is her theme, which is a slowed down version of the Double Dragon theme. Missed opportunity to have it be a remix of her theme from Neon, but whatever. Once the very obviously mind-controlled Marion is defeated, she tells the girls everything she remembers up to how she ended up here. Turns out Marion and the Double Grump brothers run a shop and 2 dojos in River City respectively, since Marion started training while waiting for Billy and Jimmy to come and save her, and she can take care of baddies all on her own now. On her last mission, she ended up in Flatirons, where she suddenly went unconscious. So now the girls' next stop is Flatirons to find out who put Marion under a mind-controlling spell. But before we go there, let's head over to Uptown first, because I wanted to. Uptown has changed a little bit more than downtown since the girls were couch-ridden. Not much has changed for the returning areas, there's just a whole lot of new ones. The hideout for Uptown is a library called Berg's Books. Aside from the giant stacks of books, there's nothing too noteworthy. But hey, there's Mr. Rudis. You run into him in the tutorial where you can get an achievement for giving a textbook back to him. I mention him because in the Japanese version of River City Girls 1 and 2, he was renamed to Mr. Kawakami, who was a baseball coach from the Super Famicom Kunio baseball game. I don't know why he went from baseball coach to math teacher, but it's a funny localization change nonetheless. Anyway, the main thing the girls gotta do in Uptown is to get into the nightclub, but the entrance is blocked off by Me Bobo, a guy who looks exactly like a Bobo since he was a recolor of him from the original Double Dragon. He tells the girls that they can't get in unless they got some sweet dance moves. The best proof we gotta give to him is to get a high score in the dancing game at the arcade. But once we get there, the door is locked. And coincidentally, Hiroshi is here, who has a completely different voice actor for some reason.
The latest issue of Cosmic Mega Babes just got released. And if you think I'm gonna download the digital manga version, you are sadly mistaken.
I was planning to set the top 5 scores again in Ultra Dance You Light Up My Life Baby Remix VXX, but they changed all the games, so now they only accept Y coins.
He tells the girls that the only way to get into the arcade now is to have Yakuza coins, specifically 15 of these coins in order to get in. So now we gotta find 3 token dispensers in Uptown to get 5 coins from each. 1 near the entrance of the toy shop, 1 in the basement, and 1 near the Yokujo alley. Which reminds me, the basement only has 2 floors this time instead of 7, thank fucking god. But the person who runs the pawn shop at the bottom isn't Skullmageddon this time. In fact, it's not even a person. It's a dog.
Wolf.
I'll talk about who voices it later. And remember those cats that you can find on a New Game Plus playthrough in River City Girls 1? Well, now they're part of a main side quest with Mihako since she runs a cat cafe in Uptown now.
Where's your little doggy? Oh, Molly McMuffins? She was being naughty, so we had to get rid of her.
You're still holding her though.
As in, like, get rid of her?
What? Oh no, of course not. I gave Molly to my sister, but that's part of a broader life change.
What do you mean you gave her to her sister? You're still holding her! Why couldn't they just make new art of her not having her fucking dog? Anyway, once we get 15 Y coins, we can go into the arcade and play that dancing game. And they must let anyone get into this club because this is the easiest rhythm game in existence. It involves hitting the correct button or direction on the D-pad in the right rhythm, which makes your character fight off baddies, but it is so fucking easy that you can make extremely late or extremely early inputs and you'll still win. If this is so easy, then why did they even put it here in the first place? Once we're done with that, the girls show the photo they took of the high score to Mibobo and they can go inside now. Inside the dance club, an off-screen Ken commands some baddies to fight the two girls and a lock encounter ensues. This time with a disco ball instead of a lock. And this is a pretty cool detail up until you realize that they didn't make art of the disco ball look more broken, so they just made it pulsate red faster and faster with the more enemies you beat. You can also run into Wes, another character from River City Ransom Underground that you can recruit as a hired henchman. He has the best redesign out of the other Underground characters, so that's something going for him. Why is he wearing shorts though? Next, the girls head to the dance floor where another lock encounter happens. This time with no disco ball, but a shocky electric floor instead. There's a bathroom right next to it for some reason, and... yeah, I'm gonna pretend I didn't see anything. Going to the next dance floor after that leads us to the boss of Uptown, Pruvi. And Pruvi seems like a nice gal as she immediately assumes that the girls are Yakuza and fights them. So, as I mentioned in my RCG1 video, Pruvi is one of the main playable characters from Underground and was actually inspired by one of Banon Rudis' friends who has the same name. In her debut game, she uses a breakdancing inspired fighting style, and that's reflected in her boss fight and when you play as her. Thankfully, there's nothing too bullshitty about her fight aside from the giant robots on both sides of the arena that fire lasers at you. Pruvi fights similarly to how you play as her, except she does this dancing move when a part of her health bar is emptied. Aside from that, she's the easiest boss in the game. Her theme is pretty cool though. It isn't present in the soundtrack version of her theme, but when you bring Pruvi down to the last part of her health bar, the audience will start cheering her name. It's a really nice touch that I wish was kept in the soundtrack release. Once Pruvi's defeated, she tells the girls she's been looking for her friend, Chris, another character from Underground, as she thinks Ken might have captured her. Pruvi says that they both got the top 2 high score in the dancing arcade game, but when Kyoko tries to look for her on the Honker app, it seems like Kyoko and Masako got cancelled.
What? What's going on?
What is it?
Someone posted embarrassing photos of us online!
Pruvi says that it probably has something to do with Technos, which is a high-tech complex in River City that's located near Uptown. A social media menace apparently took over Technos ever since the Yakuza took over River City. They've been hacking tons of people's accounts, including Pruvi's. But hey, what about Chris? I think we should go looking for her first. Oh, she's just near the entrance to the dojo in Crosstown. Well, that solves that mystery. So, in order to find out who was controlling Marion, Flatirons is our next stop. This is one of the weirdest locations in the entire game, since it doesn't feel like it should be in a Kunio-kun game or even a Double Dragon game at all. The set pieces are all over the place. It's an abandoned zoo that's connected to an amusement park that's connected to an obviously spooky forest and an ancient Japanese temple. The hideout is an area of abandoned lion cages. Totally safe, right? You can find Berserker, a playable character from the lesser-known Technos beat-em-up The Combat Tribes, to help you out. Although I don't think you should be with your newborn while you're out fighting people. Just a thought. The main story mission in Flatirons lies in the obviously haunted forest, the Witchy Woods. This is the most frustrating area to go through because guess what? It's a fucking maze. It's a guessing game on where you're supposed to go, so you gotta rely on a good old trial and error because certain entryways can take you all over the place. Some even take you to the very beginning and you won't even realize it. The only indication that you're going the right way is when the girls talk to each other. I don't get why they thought that a maze would be a good idea to put in a beat-em-up. In one area, there's even a side quest that just initiates a lock encounter when you accept it, which wastes even more time. What the fuck is this area? There's a secret shop where you can buy special elemental boosts to your attacks. Electric is the best one since it stuns enemies for a bit. Oh, and remember that temple I was talking about earlier? Well, it's one of the 2 saunas in the game, and the one in the temple is run by Crash. You know, from Crash and the Boys? That weird 3rd game from the localized Kunio-kun trilogy? Yeah, that's him. You can do a side quest with him, which is basically a race through the Witchy Woods' maze. It's really easy since once you go through the maze once, there's floating little symbols above the pathways that lead to the exit. Anyway, now we're finally out of these woods, we can go to the basement door of a cabin that leads us to a graveyard.
Found another one. Oh, it's got a little patch over one eye.
I hate this so much.
Yeah, tell me about it. Also, no it didn't. There's a market underneath one of the graves, or a skeleton market to be exact, where we run into Snap, voiced by Matt McMuscles. Now, I've already talked about how much I don't like the casting choices of the Double Grunt brothers, right? Well, at least they're trying to act. Matt, on the other hand, just can't. At all. I just can't put into words how awful his acting is. Or lack thereof, really. You just gotta listen to it yourself.
Well, I like to bring a certain level of panache to my salesmanship, but if you're not having it, I can tone it down, sure.
What is this place?
We sell unusual goods, ones you would never find in a traditional market.
Our local pawn shop has a lot of weird things for sale.
Well, yes, maybe a bit of overlap there, but can they beat our prices?
Probably.
Oh. Well, we were forced to set up shop here after the witch Blair banished us in the most inhumane manner.
Matt voicing this guy is easily the worst casting choice these two games have had, and that is really saying something. But Kanka, Matt's avatar is a skeleton. Go pick up a football. Anyway, Snap talks about how he had to move to this area after a witch named Blair banished him, and she even shot out a set of his tarot cards all over River City, and he wants you to find all 20 of them. Sure, yeah, why not make us get even more collectibles? It's not like there's 30 cats we gotta get already. Because everybody knows the best aspect of playing a beat-em-up is not beating up people, but collecting shit. Speaking of skeletons, the girls run into Skullmageddon in the graveyard, who tasks them with finding 3 ghost peppers in order to get rid of the vines blocking the exit he's standing in front of. By the way, he talks about how he kidnapped Marion and references the amazing ending to Double Dragon Neon where she punches his gut before he even lands on the ground. It's a pretty funny reference, but if you're playing as Marion, she doesn't even remember that happening.
Back when I was more of a supervillain and less of a purveyor of fine goods, I tussled with the Lee brothers a few times.
Let me guess. You kidnapped Marion to get their attention.
Either she has a bad memory or Wayforward wants us to forget that they made the best Double Dragon game. Anyway, the ghost peppers are located at the very entrance of Flatirons, the fair, and at the Ferris wheel. In order to catch them, you have to use a ghost trap, but not before knocking them out first and then throwing them into the trap. This is especially annoying to do on the Ferris wheel because the ghost pepper can wake up after a few seconds while you're carrying it. And since the Ferris wheel takes forever to spin and is actively blocking your path, you have to make sure the ghost trap and the ghost pepper are extremely close to each other, which is close to the most annoying thing ever since you have enemies trying to kill you the entire time while you're doing this. Oh, and the devs thought it would be too easy to do just this annoying fetch quest because the paintings in the abandoned cabin are suddenly alive and trying to kill you too. In an extremely unfinished fashion, I might add. They float around like fucking DVD logos. Once that's done, the ghost peppers will burn the vines away and Skullmageddon will just vanish for no reason. Now the girls can move forward into a foggy field with holes in the ground that you can't even see. Your HUDs are also glitched while you're here, so you better remember how much health you had and bring some items to heal because you won't know for the next like 10 minutes. Beyond that is a tree with a mouth that opens up once you're done with the lock encounter and the girl's face who's living inside of it. Blair. So Blair is the one who put a mind-controlling spell on Marion, but she was paid to do so by the Yakuza. Now she's gonna fight the girls for breaking said spell. Blair is obviously a completely original character and honestly my favorite in these two games. She doesn't fit with Kunio-kun at all, nor does the entirety of Flatirons for that matter, but her personality and writing is actually pretty funny. I don't know, a witch with extremely powerful spells that's also a moody teenager just kills me for some reason.
Do you have any idea how expensive that spell was? It required rare artifacts that are not cheap. And with my stupid guarantee, now it comes out of my pocket to cast it again. I swear, I told that demon we shouldn't offer that.
Well, you could just, like, not put her back under a spell.
Don't tell me how to do my job, okay? I'm a lot better at what I do than whatever the hell you two do.
Being that she's a witch, her boss fight is the most unique in the entire game. She'll use different kinds of spells and tarot cards at you along with her little cat unicorn thing. The cards she uses are the Magician, which summons a pillar of magic at you, Judgment, where she summons magic orbs that slowly follow you around, where she drops multiple balls of magic onto the ground, the Lovers, which spawns a clone of the character's girlfriend/boyfriend depending on who you're playing as, and lastly Death, where she summons a bunch of zombies while she shields herself from attacks. Along with a tarot card, she'll use it alongside a different colored card, the color of the card indicating the type of magic she'll use: red for fire, blue for water, yellow for electricity, and green for poison. She uses all of these cards during her phases while attacking you herself, which include launching her little cat unicorn thing across the area, shielding herself while icosahedrons fly across the area, and my favorite, where she uses her staff like a golf club. It's an extremely unique boss that I really like, actually. Her boss theme is really catchy too. My only problem with it is that it doesn't fit with Kunio-kun in the slightest. The entirety of Flatirons just feels like unused concepts for a cancelled game that they just decided to tack onto this game. It breaks the theme that Kunio-kun has always gone for, which is ridiculous but realistic scenarios in the real world, not fighting off a moody witch that uses magical spells along with a skeleton voiced by a YouTuber. Once Blair's defeated, she tells her life story about why she became a witch. Her dad was a magician and her mom was a fortune teller. She learned magic at a really young age, but her dad somehow banished himself and his wife into another realm, and so she spent the rest of her life selling potions and magic in Flatirons. Then a couple years ago, which I think is even before RCG1, Ken shows up and basically makes Blair the Sanwakai clan's magic mercenary, and unsurprisingly, she put the mind controlling spell on Marion. She says that if the girls come back to her shop and buy stuff from her, then she'll be chill with them. She also gives them her emblem, which is what the other two of the Yakuza's special employees have, which are the bosses of the two next areas I'll talk about. Blair's area becomes a real shop from here on out, which is pretty neat. Now, before we move on to the next area, I want to mention something. A specific character, actually. The Ferryman. Being extremely out of place character design-wise aside, he's voiced by Jacob Rabun, also known as Alpharad. He also voices the dog who took over the basement's pawn shop in Uptown.
Bow wow.
Him being in the game isn't as bad as Matt voicing Snap. He does a decent job, actually. It's specifically the voice direction he was given that's the problem.
I'm the ferryman, and for a price, I can take you wherever you need to travel.
Except on land.
Well, yes, obviously. Climb aboard my cursed vessel when the journey is far, and I will transport you across this plane of existence to your destination.
For a fee, right?
It's reasonably priced. Cheaper than a taxi, really. Feel free to charge your phones, and there's water bottles under the seat.
Alpharad made a YouTube short about this already, but to go through it really quick, the voice director of RCG2, Christina I'm an Amazing Voice Director V, brought Alpharad to voice two characters, those being the dog and the ferryman. When he did the lines for the ferryman specifically, Christina just said to just do a typical voice of what a ferryman would sound like, and so he did. The problem was that he didn't even know what the ferryman would look like, making his performance not fit with the character in the slightest. I don't know if Rem wasn't finalizing the ferryman's design at that time, but they could have at least given him a sketch of that design. Anyway, the ferryman's only purpose here is to bring the girls to Ocean Heights, which you can actually go to once the stuff in Crosstown is done. The problem is that you can't do everything in Ocean Heights yet without dealing with both Flatirons and Technos first. So the game makes it seem like it's very open when it really isn't. The ferryman being in Ocean Heights clearly implies that Flatirons is supposed to be done after Technos, but since me, assuming that the game wouldn't be as linear as RCG1, made me think that I could, you know, do everything in Ocean Heights? If only a portion of it is open, why is it even open in the first place? The game just feels like it wants to be more open with its world exploration, but it just can't shake off the linear feeling of a traditional beat-em-up. Not even River City Ransom was this restrictive. So since we can't do everything in Ocean Heights yet, I'll explain why that is later, let's move on to the area that opens up next to Uptown, Technos. At the entrance of the building, we see the other Abobo recolor from Double Dragon, Jack, guarding it. But since he's such a big fan of Provy, the girls can go inside anyway. By the way, this is what happens when you play as Provy in this scene.
Yeah, I know it. So how about letting us inside?
I really shouldn't, but... oh, heck, why not? Anything for Provy.
Well, that was easy.
Are we really that famous? You got no idea.
There are so many things I want to say about how infuriating this is, but I think you guys get the gist. Also, the three Abobo brothers now show up and are all hanging out with each other when you go back to Abobo's apartment in downtown. There isn't that much to say, I think it's just funny. Anyway, Technos is basically the Technos fanboy's wet dream. You got displays of badly pixelated covers of River City Ransom, Crash and the Boys. For whatever reason, the Game Boy game Bangai Ronto Hen is also here. A giant display of the Double Dragon arcade title screen with a display of a Super Dodgeball screenshot for some reason. Arcade cabinets of the original Double Dragon trilogy encased in glass and portraits of other random Technos characters above it. Oh, and also this Mexican food stand. Oh, and hey look, they got an NES encased in glass too. I think a Famicom would have made more sense, but whatever. I guess I should also mention the clothes store at the entrance of Technos, which has a massive deep-cut Wayforward callback in the form of Jake, the protagonist from Lit. You know, that WiiWare puzzle horror game that got a Steam port a few years later with a worse art style? Yeah, he's in this game, but I don't know why since this is Technos and not Wayforward, but sure. Oh yeah, in case you're curious, Sonokawa is the CEO and founder of Technos. He's a recurring guy from the Downtown Neketsu series, but now he looks weird as fuck and is voiced by Xander Mobus.
Since then, I've founded this company and become a billionaire tech giant. Oops, correction. Make that trillionaire. Good earnings this morning.
Can we have some money?
Of course not.
There's not much to say about him though, he just kinda exists. The main story mission in Technos is to deal with Suiko, the girl who's running the social media side of the company and was also the one who posted the embarrassing pictures of Kyoko and Masako. She's also the most annoying character in this entire game, which going by a good portion of the cast is a massive accomplishment.
I know why you're here. I've been following you since you hit Technos, and believe me, your feed is mecha-doll like... My grandma gets more clicks and shares, and she's 82 and retired, and, dead.
Technos is an extremely weird area since it starts out as a museum of Technos' accomplishments and other things, but then you go past the door at the end of this office and it's a robot factory with one of David Liu's OCs making a cameo in it. By the way, in that office I just mentioned, there's a side quest where you gotta carry 3 pieces of furniture to the office for Kuniko, who first appeared as Neketsu High's baseball manager from the Kunio Baseball Super Famicom game, but now works as an intern at Technos and wants the girls' help to get the furniture into the office. And by help, I mean they do all the work and she just stands there. Anyway, the girls make it to the atrium of the building and we run into Sabako. Again, she tells the girls that they need an access code to get to Suiko's office.
Crawl into the vent, and it'll take you to the robotics warehouse.
This sounds complicated. Can you write it down for us?
But you guys have phones, right? You could just type that shit down. Sabako tells them that in order to reach Suiko's office, they'll need to get through a vent that leads to the robotics warehouse where they'll see a computer that they can type the access code in. But there's a giant fan at the end of the vent, and to counter this, she gives the girls an EMP device to shut it off, which is a shotgun with a toaster attached to it named Bibu.
I'm Bibu!
Oh god, and it talks too?! No! This is annoying as shit! You can also find the main hideout here, which is honestly the funniest one since it's just a supply closet. Also, there's a shop called Vegan and Out that's run by Roxy, who is Hasabe's localized counterpart in River City Ransom. Does this mean Alex and Ryan also exist in this universe? I mean, the Double Dragon characters exist in this universe too, so that implies that a nuclear war must have happened at some point. So I'm sorry, Masako, but Bibu can't actually hurt enemies. It does provide a really easy way to rank up your combo though. Once again, this is clearly a 2-player situation where one player has to hold Bibu and stun enemies while another player actually attacks them. I think these situations wouldn't be so annoying if an AI-controlled second player would be an option. You know, a feature that Technos implemented in 1991? The girls fight off some enemies with Bibu and we backtrack all the way to this air vent at the entrance.
Being useful makes me happy.
Oh my god, shut up. The air vent has fucking fire and ice coming out of it, so just make sure you don't get hit by that. There's 2 fans they gotta hit with Bibu, which inevitably makes it explode.
Look, what if it hurts Bibu?
We'll be fine, come on.
Oh no! Anyway,
that leads to us to the warehouse where we fight enemies on treadmills that lead to opening pits that can kill enemies but also yourself. Then we get into a VR room which takes on a Wild West aesthetic because I don't know, and the girls find the computer. But suddenly they're shrunken down and we do probably the worst minigame in this entire game where you have to jump around and hit floating symbols in the right order with enemies attacking you. It's a lot worse than it sounds. After the girls tell Sabako they got the code through fucking telepathy it seems because they don't have walkie-talkies or anything. She tells them that Suiko should be at the Biodome, which is inaccessible when you first get into Technos for, like, no reason. It's literally out in the open! At least put lasers guarding it there for fuck's sake. Once they they get to the biodome, however, it seems like they're too late because Suiko is already at her office. So we gotta take care of the enemies inside the biodome and in the elevator leading to her office. Streets of Rage 4, this ain't, but at least you can still knock enemies off of it. Now that's done, we can finally take care of Suiko herself, and oh my god, is this fight terrible!
Oh, well, then you'd better tell us your backstory so we can get this fight going.
Backstory? I'm not telling you two anything about me.
Fucking good!
Hold up. I'm composing a honk by facial recognition. Don't distract me or I might accidentally order a lemon spice latte. Record message. Tessa G. OMG, girl, that dress was hella blazin'. Hashtag hot bumpin'. Hashtag what? Catch you later at Doublies, boo-boo. And message, add blonde glitter Audi, shade 233 magenta, filter Shut up! Computer! Load badass bot fight music track 26.
Kinda ironic since she has the worst boss theme in the game. Seriously, it's just garbled chiptune and fake dubstep nonsense. It's a mess. The boss fight itself is also a fucking mess. Suiko walks around in a blue energy shield and walks faster than you can walk while multiple things try to kill you. Laser shooting drones that circle around her, explosives she drops herself, her teleportation, this extremely annoying robot on top of her that attacks you with punches that you can't even parry, more robot cat girls, a whole slew of drones that you need to avoid in her later phases, and lastly, a really easy to avoid giant laser in her last phase. In between those phases are sequences where she takes you on a badly animated nostalgia trip. One based on Double Dragon, one based on River City Ransom, one based on the Combat Tribes, and one lastly based on Kunio-tachi no Banka. These parts are the most bearable because you can actually understand what's going on here. This boss is the definition of time wasting, but it isn't even fun time wasting. It just makes you want to move on and actually try to defeat her, but so much shit gets in your way, prolonging the boss for way longer than it ever needs to be. Just fuck this fight. Fuck Suiko in general. You don't fit in this game, your dialogue is horribly written, and I hope your archetype ages like the milk I left out in the open for a week that one time. Once she's finally defeated, she gives the girls her emblem.
Never mind. Here, take my emblem. You'll need it if you're planning to take down Sabu. We'll get you into exclusive locations. Everyone who works for Sabu has one. Everyone who matters anyway.
Yeah, definitely not you. Now that we're done with both Flatirons and Technos, we can finally move on to Ocean Heights. Another returning area from River City Girls 1 that's changed the least in terms of returning places, but just gains newer ones. I did mention this in River City Girls 1, but there was a clothing store near the dock where Noise's concert was, which is called Plaid the Impaler, and guess what? It's run by a vampire called Dimitri.
Hit the lights. Don't tell your friends.
Well, now in RCG2, it's run by Patricia Wagon from Mighty Switch Force. They even brought back her original voice actress from those games. I actually really love the Mighty Switch Force series, but it sucks that it hasn't had a new entry in almost a decade now. And it really sounds like her voice actress hasn't voiced her for that long too.
Hey there, cadet. Welcome to my shop. Customer served. Stop in the name of the law. Just kidding.
But it's pretty weird that the shop is still called Plaid the Impaler despite the shop not being run by Dimitri anymore. He was even cut from the mobile port of RCG1 where he was again replaced by Hime, Crunchyroll's mascot since it was published by their game division. Hold on, I'm gonna look up who voiced him. Oh. There's also this new volleyball minigame where Yamada makes a surprise appearance as the girls stop him from harassing Kaori. It's not too noteworthy, it's just cool to see returning bosses come back. The hideout is also the weirdest in the whole game, I think. I do think it's funny that the recruits are in those cage things. Anyway, the main story thing we gotta do here is to get into the restaurant of the world-famous chef, Primo. But Sabako tells the girls that they need disguises to get inside. The emblems that they got from Suiko and Blair aren't enough, so they gotta get disguises as well. So Sabako suggests to get Hibari Hibari at the shipyard to get some disguises. And yes, it's the same Hibari from River City Girls 1. You know, the second worst boss in that game. So the girls head to the shipyard and Hibari almost immediately sends out enemies to kill them. After taking care of them, she accepts the girls' favor, if they can lift up all of the crates onto a ship, that is. But oh no, they're too weak, even though they have no trouble picking up couches. But yeah, now they gotta beef up, and Shimizu is just the right kind of guy to help them do that. How? With a button mashing minigame, of course. Now that the girls are all beefed up, they can get trapped in this forced sequence of lock encounters where you gotta beat up a shit ton of people. And since the girls are way stronger now, they launch enemies into the air way higher when you try to do an air combo, which is honestly pretty hilarious. But yeah, what was the point of this? Oh yeah, we gotta do another minigame where we carry 15 crates over to the ship. Also, why are they carrying crates of zombies? Anyway, the girls get the crates loaded up and now they can get those disguises. You can also hire Hibari as a recruit once you're done with that minigame, which is kinda nice. The girls then walk up to the restaurant with their really good disguises to burn off because reusing assets is cheaper than making a new character. Anyway, the girls can now finally get inside of Primo's restaurant. We even see a portrait of him in the lobby, but just you wait, this is only a glimpse of his power. So the main gimmick of Primo's is that it's required to beat all of the enemies in each room, because at least one of them will have a key card that opens up the door to the next room. You gotta do this 3 times, but it still feels repetitive as shit. You gotta love that sweet and delicious flavor of padding.
Yeah, boy.
Eventually, the girls run into Enoki, one of Primo's assistants.
Try to keep up. Why are you chained up like that?
Well, Senor Primo likes to make sure his kitchen staff, stays focused.
Oh, come the fuck on. He clearly isn't chained up. You couldn't just make a couple sprites of him actually chained up, you lazy pieces of shit. Enoki gives us the last key card to the TV set where we fight, in my opinion, the greatest boss, hell, the greatest character in this entire game, Signor Primo. I gotta start off by giving all of the credit in the world to Primo's voice actor, Alejandro Saab. You, my man, did an absolute fantastic job voicing this guy.
Because with all our powers combined with Sabu's Yakuza forces, River City will be ours! Yeah, Primo's not giving you my emblem, whoever you is. No joke, they look like bad Halloween kittens. Give Primo a little credit, huh?
So after the girls try to convince Primo to give him his medal, terribly I might add, his boss fight starts, and oh my god, this is where all the good boss design must have gotten to. He isn't too complicated or bombards you with gimmicks only meant to annoy you and waste time. He has some fun and creative obstacles to avoid and is honestly a pretty tough challenge. He'll try to cut you up into pieces, spin around and throw knives at you, sends out some dancers to spin around him as he dances himself. Look, his dancing is so powerful that he's literally on fire! And lastly, he rides on an applause sign while throwing grenades at you while a giant boom mic comes in and tries to crush you, while a camera crew will come out of nowhere riding across the set to run you over. Oh, also, whenever you beat his first and second phases, this happens.
I gotta admit, that first course was tougher than I expected. Primo's got some spicy recipes, but we're not ready for the check just yet.
This is one of the only parts in the game that made me genuinely tear up from laughter. It is fucking genius! The only problem I have with this boss is that Primo goes down a little bit too quickly. I guess it's because I'm just so used to every other boss padding out their bullshit at this point, and I forgot how a good beat-em-up boss's length should be. Short, sweet, but a good challenge of knowledge and skill, and that's why I love this fight so much. Once Primo is defeated, he gives up his emblem to the girls. But there's just one problem. Primo just sent out a special dish to River City High's lunch that'll make every student obey the Yakuza. Well, hey, no problem, we got the extremely handy bus system that'll help you get across the city. I haven't actually brought it up until now, but the River City transit system is extremely useful for going around, especially since there's like 3 different collectibles in this game that you gotta get. It just makes getting them a lot easier.
I got another text message from Suiko.
What's it say?
I can't read it. All the words are abbreviated to try and look cooler.
She says the Yakuza have stopped all the buses. Great. Guess we gotta hoof it across town now.
You never know how important public transit is till it's gone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm fine with this. I'm fine with wasting 10 minutes of my playtime just not being able to fast travel. This is like not being able to fast travel in an RPG because of a story event or something. It makes zero fucking sense for why now the buses won't work. Oh, No, wait, I know why. Because Wayforward's secret word while developing both of these games is padding. And yes, since Ocean Heights is so far away from Crosstown, you have to go past Uptown or Downtown first in order to get to the end of Crosstown, which is where River City High is. I do not see any other reason for why the buses are disabled here other than padding. There isn't even anything new that happens other than enemies being harder since they got stronger as you level up. It is such bullshit! Okay, we're almost done here. Let's finish this. So, the entrance of River City High has been completely blocked off with a new and fancy Sanwakai gate. And after taking care of some enemies, the girls use one of the emblems to open the gate and go inside. By the way, I've played this game way too much and I legit have no idea what the emblems are supposed to look like. I don't even think they have designs other than that one on the RCH gate. Anyway, it seems the students already ate that dish Primo gave them because River City High is completely trashed. There's metal detectors at the main lobby, the cafeteria is messy as all hell, the gym has paper and other trash flying all over the place. The locker is this area's hideout, by the way. Even Naritaka opened up a shop in the bathroom where he's selling chewed up pencils and bandages for profit. And even worse, he's not voiced by Nate Wants to Battle anymore!
I'm training hard, and I heard retail was as tough as it gets.
No! The locker rooms and classrooms are not much better, with almost everything being extremely dirty or straight up broken. There's a fucking cell block now in one of the floors where you have to fight enemies while the metal detector pathways across each side shock you if you try to walk through them. This classroom's projector now plays propaganda telling every kid in the school to be afraid of Kyoko and Masako specifically.
Masako and Kyoko are actually monsters in disguise and should be avoided at all costs.
They sound awfully scary. What happens if they corner me in a dark alley?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Masako and Kyoko are very formidable, but since they are monstrous creatures, they inherently have weaknesses we can
show.
Oh, okay. As you can see here, the monsters have a thick exoskeleton that protects and stops gooey corporeal form, where they store their guts and stuff. No brain or heart is to be found inside, of course, since they are running on pure monster instincts.
What can I use to break through their exoskeleton?
Coming in hot with the right questions. Why, there are many ways to break through their defenses. Oof, too hot. You can use a myriad of varied methods. If you can't run and have access to these, I recommend any of the following weapons to soften their outer shell. Can you name them for me?
Metal chain, laser sword, bat, spike bat, double barrel bat with spikes, double barrel bat with more baseball bats instead of spikes that shoot out real bats.
So remember, when you encounter one of these monsters in River City, what do?
Turn around, run, don't look back, never stop running.
Exactly.
This is the kind of shit I wanted to see for every area in RCG2. Not all of them being trashed up this much, of course, but I wish every returning area got a new look or tone to them. Before I talk about the main mission in this area, there are at least 2 more collectibles in the main game. And thankfully, one kind of these collectibles is only in River City High, and they involve the greatest localized character American Technos ever came up with, Mr. K. He tasks the girls with finding 4 clues all over River City High to solve some kind of mystery, I don't know. The clues themselves are located in the detention room, the teacher's break room, the school gym, and the checkpoint screening at the entrance. You can obviously tell if a room has a clue or not because the entire screen goes black and white with a fake film grain effect and some smooth detective-sounding music in the background. You don't really get anything too noteworthy for doing this aside from getting a shit ton of XP. The second collectible quest is for Godai, where you gotta get his blueprints all over River City. I'll talk about this one later. For now, let's go over what we gotta do to get past this open flame barrier that's preventing the girls from getting to Ken, who tells the students at River City High to beat up the girls multiple times over the intercom. The girls make it down to the boiler room where they have to find 4 dials all over the room and rotate them in a specific orientation on this little machine thingy, all while being accompanied by the second best character in this game, Thumby.
Is this one of them?
By gum, it sure is! I call that particular dial skipping, on account of how I always skip with joy whenever I see it.
Sure, whatever. How many more of these are left?
3 more. But before you go looking for them, Gotta reinstall this fella here. Hey there, Skippy! Nice to see you again. Old Thummy sure did miss ya.
I really wish he had more screen time than this. I actually don't mind that we get one lock encounter per dial we have to put on this thing, since we get to see more of Thumby while it lasts.
Well, we're not done.
And no more fire traps.
And no more Thummy.
Oh, fuck you! So once we're done with that, we can finally get further up River City High. More so at the rooftop where the girls encounter Ken a second time.
You're always hiding behind your recruits like cowards, afraid to fight your own battles.
Ken, that's a dirty-ass lie. Recruits suck in this game. I've barely even used them. Anyway, Ken sends out his 2 bodyguards to the fight, Ryuichi and Ryuji. You know, the 2 terrifying dragon twins from River City Ransom that are arguably harder than Yamada himself. Well, they're Ken's bodyguards now, and they look... Well, I think Rem took the name Dragon Twins too literally because they're supposed to be parodies of the Double Dragon Brothers, which results in them having completely different and honestly worse designs in this game. It doesn't help that they're both voiced by Chris Niosi.
Well, look at that, Ryuichi.
What's that, Ryuji?
More walking punching bags for our training.
What perfect timing.
But hey, whatever, it's cool to see these 2 characters again. I imagine they're going to be extremely... Oh, it's just the Ken fight again. But this time the Dragon Twins show up and do really shitty assist attacks that don't do anything. But it makes it seem like the Dragon Twins are actually fighting you. And then at the end of the fight, it has this gag where it seems like Ken shows up to finish the fight, but he goes down in 1 hit. What? I don't... Why? How? What was the point of this? Guys, I need a minute. Okay, so Ken and the Dragon Twins, I guess, are defeated. Ken escapes and tells the girls to go to Sanwakai Tower if they want to know where the real action is. Thankfully, when we exit out of the rooftop, we drop down to the entrance so we don't have to walk all the way back down. Oh hey, look, it's Sabako, and the buses are working again, too.
Wait, is that an evil laugh? I thought she was good now.
Definitely an evil laugh.
You fools! I've been using you this entire time!
Oh. So, Sabako was just using the girls all along so they could make Ken look inferior so Sabako could be Sabu's top dog? But wasn't Sabako clearly terrified of her father in the beginning of the game? Wouldn't this change Sabako into wanting to bring down her father for how oppressive, terrifying, and just plain evil he is?
That's actually a pretty good plan, I gotta say.
No! No, it isn't! It's a terrible idea! Why couldn't Sabako actually help out the girls in taking out Sabu? Why does Sabako suddenly go back to being a generic bad guy and pretends to be nice to the girls this whole time for a plan that doesn't make any sense? I just wanted to see this game do at least one right thing with its storytelling, but instead it divulges in the same old schlock of making every character not have a single piece of character development or nuance or anything other than I'm good, or I'm evil, or I'm completely brain dead, or I'm obviously voiced by a YouTuber. And don't you fucking dare give me the excuse of, oh, Kenka, but it's just a beat 'em up. So what? Just give me something actually good and enjoyable, goddammit! So, to add another aspect of this game sucking the life out of the player, the girls have to remove explosives from some of the girls' closest friends. But the only really good joke to this is that they're all characters that the girls either hate or are just acquaintances to. Specifically, there's Kenji in Crosstown, Minako in Uptown, Williams in Downtown, Skullmageddon in Flatirons, Kuniko in Technos, and lastly, Sunny Lee in Ocean Heights, who's the 3rd playable character in the arcade version of Double Dragon 3 and is the least known of the Double Dragon brothers, since he was just in 3 games. Now, this main quest, which you can decline for whatever reason, but if you actually do that, you can't progress any further, is on a 20-minute time limit, which doesn't sound that bad at first, except for the fact that it is almost unfairly difficult to try and untie all of the girls' captured friends if you're playing alone. In order to untie them, you have to keep holding down the light attack button while you're in front of them. Once again, this seems like a two-player specific thing where one player has to untie them while another player has to fight off never-ending enemies. And like I said, you have to hold down the light attack button to untie them. So while you're attacking enemies to defend yourself in front of a tied person, you can accidentally start untying them instead of trying to attack. You can do heavy attacks to fend them off, but still, it is extremely annoying when you're trying to fend yourself off and you're still untying them because they didn't try to remap untying to another button. To add insult to injury, you gotta start the entire mission all over again if you die. So be sure to stock up on food if you don't want to die on the last person you gotta untie like I did. So before we go to the last area, I do want to bring up this bit with Kozuki, voiced by Inaris Quinones. She first appeared in Downtown Neketsu Field Day as Reiho's broadcast director, but in River City Girls 2, she's now River City High's broadcast director looking for an exclusive story on River City's increased crime rate. She first meets the girls in Uptown where she tells them that some Oni-looking guys are blocking the entrance to Sanwakai Tower. And once you finish the mission where the girls untie their friends around the city, she comes back to tell the girls that they're just not there anymore. I only bring this up because she might be the most pointless character in this entire game, but I wish we got to see more of her. We could have seen her ongoing report about River City's events and the girls' efforts to stop the Yakuza, but nah, these are the only 2 times we see her. What a way to use a character, am I right? So once the girls, also the other 4 characters that have had 0 impact on the story show up to Sanwakai Tower where they see Sabako about to fucking kill Ken.
Don't kill him, Sabako!
Yeah, listen to them, sis.
I'm not going to kill you, little brother.
Oh, thank God.
Our family takes care of one another, even if we are not bound by blood.
Yeah, even after your father traumatized you because you didn't put in your very best. Sabako then summons a helicopter she and Ken jump on, and now the girls have to fight the helicopter. This is an incredibly easy boss. All you gotta do is throw grenades from these infinitely spawning guys dropping down at the helicopter and it's down. The only kind of attack that it does is that it launches missiles at you, but they're so easy to avoid that they aren't a problem at all. Once that's dealt with, the girls finally get inside Sanwakai Tower. And hey, did you guys notice that I'm pronouncing it right this time? I hope you did. It's almost identical to how it looks in River City Girls 1. What's different is that the elevator goes down into Sabako's underground basement this time, leading the girls to the underground part of the tower. The main thing we gotta do here before we reach Sabu is to take out these 3 reactors, which are kind of bosses. I mean, they have health bars and they do some attacks, but they're extremely easy to avoid. All the while, Sabu tells the Sanwakai doctor to
begin the process. But sir, it's still not. I gave an order. Now do it.
And once we destroy the 3 reactors and can get inside, we can finally get to see what Sabu's cooking. He's injected some kind of serum into his bloodstream to make him extremely powerful.
Your words have no effect on me. With the serum in my veins, my strength has been magnified to such a magnitude that...
You think it's the dark arts? Like that creepy Amada kid?
Hey, yeah, maybe. Unless it's just some old person thing. He is pretty old.
Old people glow with magic?
Excuse me. I'm trying to tell you about my master plan. It's very impressive. If you just listen for 2 minutes.
I'm liking his attitude already. Obviously, since he's the final boss, Sabu is the hardest in the game. He can do instant transmissions to do incredibly fast attacks at you, send out laser shooting drones in rows, can suck you into the center of the area with his dark arts, use one fist to make the area's floor crumble, and finally launch himself into the air, slam the ground, and then shoot out a massive energy beam for massive damage if you don't hide behind the rightly colored pillar. With those kind of moves, you'd expect him to have a ton of health, but actually no. He goes out pretty quickly, in fact. I guess 4th phase is run in the family. He can do one last move in this phase, which is a Shungoku Sats that can take out more than half of your health bar. But other than that, he still goes down pretty quickly. And just like that, Sabu is defeated.
No, this is impossible. I am unstoppable.
Well, clearly that's not true.
At least that serum seems to be wearing off.
Yeah, you look a lot less glowy now, Mr. Sabu.
This is just the beginning. I will make it my life's mission to destroy you, your friends, and everyone you've ever loved. I know where you live. I know where your mother lives.
Oh, hell no. We're sending your creepy ass into space.
That's it?
Well, not exactly. After the credits, we see Ken and Sabako still in the helicopter waiting for Sabu to get back. It's actually a pretty nice somber moment between them. Until...
Where is father? I wouldn't have expected his battle to last this long.
And lastly, we see the crew hanging out and playing video games after this long-ass adventure.
The first game. Doorbell. I'll get it. Huh? What are you two doing here?
Did you really think we'd miss this adventure?
Yeah, get up, losers. It's time for a rematch.
Oh god, both endings are canon. Fuck this. So, just like in River City Girls 1, there's a New Game Plus in this game too. But unlike River City Girls 1, there's way more stuff to do here in River City Girls 2's New Game Plus. It's not specifically related, but I decided to play my first New Game Plus playthrough with a Japanese dub, and oh man, this dub is really good. All of the seiyus do a fantastic job on their characters, Masako and Kyoko especially. If you can't stand any of the voice acting I've brought up in this video, then please play it in Japanese. It's honestly a completely different experience.
Yeah, 元気かい?
またかよ。
どうやったらそんな早く移動できるわけ？
本当に知りたい？
別にいい。
下水道が複雑に連結してる仕組みを利用して。い
いっつってんだろ。
Now, going into what's actually new with New Game Plus, there's a few more things to do. There's now one secret location in each area which range from ridiculously difficult to find to the secret entrance in Ocean Heights. Finding all of them and getting these gold cartridges, I think? A door that was previously locked in this long and creepy hallway in Crosstown becomes unlocked. And it's a room with a really nice looking field of flowers with someone unexpected at the end.
Don't I know you from somewhere? Oh yeah, you're that one person. Sup, buddy?
Yeah, that's Kibiko from Cat Girl Without Salad, an April Fool's joke turned full game that Wayforward made and released in 2016. She's one of the few secret hired henchmen in this game. There's quite a few of them that you can only recruit in New Game Plus. Firstly, you can find Alex and Ryan from the original River City Ransom by getting the gold cartridges from Uptown and Downtown secret rooms. From there, you can find Alex at the Capitol Avenue Bridge in Crosstown and Ryan at the dog park in Downtown. It's cool to see them here, but I wish they could have used their underground designs instead of just being ripped from the original game. Though, at the same time, they probably would have gotten really shitty redesigns anyway. Oh, and if you find half of the secret rooms, Noise will show up in the rec room in Technos as a recruitable. She actually shows up when you first come into Downtown and explains why Ocean Heights is inaccessible at the beginning of the game. She explains that there's some kind of magic barrier from getting into Ocean Heights, which doesn't disappear until you beat the bosses in Flatirons and Technos. I assumed it was Blair that caused this barrier to appear, but it's never explained exactly who made it. For the last two New Game Plus exclusive recruits, it involves yet another new kind of collectible, the gears. And even if you have a passing interest in Arc System Works properties, you know where I'm going with this. You can recruit Jam and Soul Bad Guy from Guilty Gear in Uptown and Ocean Heights respectively. And hey, Soul's right, he is the coolest cameo in this entire game. Jam, not so much. It's mostly her voice. I think her Japanese voice is fine, but in English...
Well, are you going to hire me? Or keep paying for weaklings? It's a deal. Time to make some money.
Yeah. So that's everything in New Game Plus. It's alright, but it still feels a little underwhelming. There isn't even a secret final boss like in River City Girls 1, just more collectibles to get. And speaking of which...
not be painted as someone who's a con artist.
100%ing this game is an absolute nightmare. It's nowhere near as simple nor as tedious as 100%ing River City Girls 1. Why is that? Because the devs actually counted everything in the save file percentage. To 100% this game, you need to beat the main game and New Game Plus at least once, do every single side quest twice, once for the main game and another for New Game Plus, get all 30 cats for Mihako, get all 22 tarot cards for Snap, get all 7 selfie spots and 4 blueprints for Godai, get all 12 gears in New Game Plus, max out at least one character to level 30, buy every single move for every character, buy and use every single consumable item at least once, buy and obtain every single accessory, and lastly, recruit every enemy and hired henchman at least once, including every single color variant of every enemy in the game. All 99 of them. Now, that last one may not sound so bad, since the recruit system actually works now, but this means having to painstakingly fight the same enemies over and over just to get the ones you want to recruit to fill out this list. It's even worse if you want to do this in New Game Plus, because even if you're on normal difficulty, certain enemies can combo you and instantly kill you if you're not careful. You're better off just using the 2 accessories that you can get from the returning secret shop in the tunnel that connects downtown to Ocean Heights, since those make you extremely powerful. The problem with this, though, is that you'll only be able to recruit an enemy if they're the only one standing and if they're at a certain low point of health. So you better make sure to not kill them right away, and also to have a really good memory because you can only look at the recruit list in a hideout, so you have to remember which ones you recruited and which ones you haven't yet. It is a fucking mess! Also, since buying every consumable item in the game counts to 100%, that also means you have to find every shop in the game. There's secret ones like that tunnel in downtown and the potion shop in Ocean Heights, but the absolute worst one isn't even secret. It's random. When you're done with Ocean Heights, Enoki, the character the girls meet before they fight Primo, opens up his own food truck in River City. The problem is that the truck moves whenever it wants in at least one set location in 5 areas in the game, and it'll only move if you go in and out of a hideout. There is a solution to this. It involves going in and out of Kyoko's mom's house multiple times until the truck appears, since its set location in Crosstown is right next to the house. And since it randomly spawns in these 5 locations, this could take anywhere from 5 minutes to 2 hours. There's no checklist for food or accessories in the game either, so I had to download a mod that tracks everything in the game that you've done for you. If you plan on 100%ing this game, just don't. Please. I did this only so you don't have to, and I do not recommend it. And spoilers, you get nothing for doing this. You get rewards for completing the collectible stuff like an unlimited SP accessory for getting all of the blueprints, but nothing to congratulate you for doing everything.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
I think it goes without saying that River City Girls 2 is a disaster in multiple areas. The game was released in a clearly unfinished state, causing it to be patched over the course of 9 months, and only sort of being in a playable state now. But even if it worked perfectly fine on release, the game still has so many problems that can't be fixed with online patches. The game cares way less about telling a good story than even River City Girls 1, the writing is a mess, the voice cast is half good, half god-awful, the voice direction itself is a mess, the reusing of tons of assets from River City Girls 1 makes them repetitive to go through at times, the new areas and characters make it lose any identity this world had, most of the bosses feel like the game is sucking time out of the player than anything else, the handling of the remaining 4 of the 6 playable characters and their respective voice talents is beyond disgusting, and tainting the charm and legacy of a series I love that's still struggling to do well in the West is disgraceful. But there's still some things that this game does right. The gameplay is better than ever, the new music is phenomenal, the mission system is really nicely implemented, the deep cut cameos from other Technos and Wayforward properties is pretty fun to see, and the Japanese seiyus did a way better job than they ever needed to. But that makes me get mixed signals here. Either the devs were passionate about making this game the best it could, but were short on time, or they just wanted to get this game out as quickly as possible, not realizing the consequences of doing that. But they know it won't really affect them in the long run because they're Wayforward. Ever since the release of Shantae Half Genie Hero, I've noticed a severe decline in the quality of their titles. And it sucks because they've built up a great history of titles over the years. Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, DuckTales Remastered, Contra 4, Mighty Switch Force, Force, and of course, Double Dragon Neon. I may come off as some butthurt fanboy railing about how Wayforward's games used to be so good, but that's because they really were, and it sucks seeing them just not care anymore. I do believe that Bannon Rudis and Adam Tierney are good and passionate developers, but their philosophies on old entire traditions of the games they grew up with will seep into these titles way too much. So much so that it makes even the Technos era Kunio games seem more advanced. Arc System Works has handled the Kunio-kun series themselves really well, with A+ games making some of the best games the series has ever had. But something like the River City Girls trilogy can also happen when you hand off your IP to third-party developers. I don't want to come off as completely dissing Tierney and Rudis' work because they have a clear passion for what they want to do, but passion can only get you so far if the fruits of your labor aren't right. I obviously want to see these guys keep making the games they want to make, but I need proof to see that they can improve on their craft, and unfortunately River City Girls 2 didn't do that. Not even slightly. The credits theme of River City Girls 2 is called Thanks for Your Time by Megan McDuffie. It's a somber but kind of humorous piece, which seems to be playing off a similar credits theme, Dare to Dream by Jake Kaufman, the credits theme for Double Dragon Neon 11 years prior. The difference between the two is that Dare to Dream features the main voice cast, who are also the developers, singing about how the Double Dragon brothers crushed Skullmageddon's dreams of just wanting a lover. It's a beautifully hilarious piece that puts a perfect bookend to an amazing game. Thanks for Your Time, meanwhile, feels like it's spitting in the face of the player. The entire credit sequence and the song felt like they were slapped together, with it sort of being a polar opposite of Skullmageddon falling to the ground, with Sabu flying up into the air, crashing through multiple floors of Sanwakai Tower. The lyrics for it are the biggest sign that, with brilliant lines such as it speaks wonders about the message of the game itself and modern Wayforward in general, imitating an amazing credit sequence with something that makes the player feel like they didn't use their time well rather than congratulating them for their efforts. Thanks for your time? Well, thank you for wasting mine.
Thanks for your time.
Aw, it's over.
Oh God, please, I'm begging you, just say one thing.
It's that. I forgot.
Come on. River City Girls 2,
featuring the Double Dragons.
Available now.
Well, that's great. I gotta do some reading though.